Are you sure you'll be okay going to the hospital alone? I heard those words, but at that moment, I felt anything but okay. 9 months pregnant, scared, and overwhelmed, and yet the man who should have been my strongest support was pushing me away. My name is Emily, and this is the story of how I faced the hardest moments of my pregnancy almost completely alone, with only hope, courage, and a few unexpected allies to guide me through. Living in Seattle's vibrant neighborhoods, I was overwhelmed by a mix of excitement and nervousness as my due date drew near. The city was alive with the early signs of spring, the cherry blossoms blooming in parks, the gentle hum of morning traffic, and the distant sound of ferries crossing the bay. From my small apartment window, I watched the sun rise over the skyline, feeling a quiet hope for the new life growing inside me. First-time motherhood was a journey I imagined would be filled with joy and anticipation, yet beneath it all, anxiety quietly gnawed at my heart. My husband, Mark, had a demanding white-collar job in a financial firm downtown. His weekdays were packed with meetings, calls, and deadlines, and weekends were his escape. He often retreated to his parents' house just a few blocks away, claiming it was to stay connected with family. But as the weeks passed, I felt increasingly isolated. While I was navigating the physical toll of pregnancy, the swelling ankles, the restless nights, the constant urge to prepare for the baby, Mark seemed distant, emotionally checked out from the daily realities of our growing family. At home, the weight of responsibility rested mostly on my shoulders. My mornings started before dawn, waking early to prepare breakfast for Mark, ensuring he left for work with his favorite coffee. I'd tidy the apartment, do laundry, and plan the meals for the day. The thought of lifting heavy bags during errands was daunting, but I braced myself, often relying on kind friends like Sarah, who occasionally offered to help with shopping or carrying items. Despite the exhaustion, I pushed myself to maintain a semblance of normalcy, keeping a daily routine that anchored me in uncertain times. One small comfort in this whirlwind was my new hobby, blogging. Since starting maternity leave, I began documenting the quiet moments of my days. Photographs of the bright blue sky after rain, the delicate blooms of daffodils in our garden, the simple yet comforting meals I prepared. Each post was a little window into my world, and the comments from friends and readers became a source of encouragement. Sharing my journey helped me process the emotional highs and lows, giving me a sense of connection beyond the walls of our apartment. Yet, as much as I cherished these moments, the growing distance with Mark was a constant shadow. His weekends away felt like an unspoken message that I was to handle things alone. While he was physically nearby at his parents' home, emotionally he was miles away. This wasn't the partnership I had hoped for. The shared joys and struggles of preparing for our child felt uneven, and the silence between us stretched longer with each passing day. Sometimes in the quiet of the night, I wondered if this was what marriage was supposed to be like, a series of lonely hours punctuated by fleeting moments of togetherness. But deep down, I clung to hope. Hope that Mark would step up, that things would change before our baby arrived. Hope that despite the challenges, our family would find its way to the love and support it needed. Mark's presence in our home was often more absence than company. Weekends, which I had imagined would be filled with shared moments and support, were instead marked by his frequent retreats to his parents' house just a few blocks away. While I understood the importance of family ties, it felt as though he was choosing them over his own wife, especially in these crucial months before our child's arrival. When Mark did come home, his demeanor was distant, sometimes impatient. There was little effort to help with daily tasks that had become increasingly difficult for me. Carrying heavy shopping bags, tidying up after long days, preparing meals, these were chores I should not have shouldered alone, yet they fell almost entirely on me. The growing belly that marked the life inside me became an invisible barrier, a reason for my exhaustion, but not, it seemed, for his compassion. One evening, after carefully preparing dinner, a simple meal meant to bring warmth to our home, I offered Mark a drink. The moment I mentioned that I hadn't bought his favorite beer, a shadow passed over his face. His frustration quickly turned to anger. "Why didn't you get it?" he snapped. "You know I wanted it." The anger in his voice was sharp, unforgiving. I tried to explain my physical limitations, my cautious movements, but he brushed it aside. Pregnant or not, it's your job to take care of things, he said coldly. The sting of his words cut deeper than any physical pain. It wasn't just about beer or dinners, it was the lack of empathy, the absence of partnership in the journey we were supposed to share. I felt trapped in a role where my needs and feelings were secondary, where his expectations ignored the reality of carrying our child. His outbursts left me walking a careful line, trying to avoid conflicts while suppressing the growing resentment. The emotional distance widened as I longed for a partner, not just a roommate who arrived home late and left early. In these moments, the question haunted me. Was this the marriage I had dreamed of? Or had I been settling for a shadow of what love and support should be? The final weeks of pregnancy felt like a marathon with no finish line in sight. Every day, I woke before dawn, moving through a seemingly endless list of chores and preparations. Making breakfast for Mark was just the start. I would then clean the apartment meticulously, wiping countertops, doing laundry, tidying up rooms, trying to create a calm, welcoming space for our baby. Shopping trips became small battles. Carrying bags filled with groceries, baby supplies, and household necessities tested my strength and patience. Though friends like Sarah often stepped in to lend a hand, I still felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. The physical exhaustion was compounded by emotional fatigue, the lonely hours spent wondering if Mark truly understood what I was going through. Evenings brought little relief. After cooking dinner, I often found myself sitting alone, Mark either distracted by his phone or retreating to another room. His indifference was a cold reminder that, despite sharing a roof, we were growing apart. In my blog, I tried to capture moments of beauty amidst the struggle. The softness of morning light spilling into the kitchen, the delicate petals of spring flowers, the quiet hum of life going on outside. Writing became a refuge, a way to reclaim some control and find connection when real-life support felt scarce. But as my belly grew, so did the ache in my heart. I craved partnership, encouragement, and kindness, things I wasn't getting from Mark. The imbalance in our relationship left me feeling isolated at a time when I needed support the most. Yet I held on to hope that with our baby's arrival things might change, that love and care would grow alongside our family, that the man I married would become the partner I needed. It was a typical evening, yet one that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I had spent hours preparing a simple dinner, hopeful for a peaceful night. But when Mark came home unexpectedly early, the fragile calm shattered. His tired eyes quickly hardened into impatience. "Where's the beer?" he demanded, his tone sharp. When I told him I hadn't bought any, a spark of anger ignited in his voice. What started as a small disappointment exploded into a heated argument, fueled by stress and unspoken frustrations. "Why didn't you just get it yourself?" I asked, struggling to hold back tears and steady my swollen hands. But instead of understanding, his frustration turned to blame. "You forgot. That's your responsibility." The sharp words cut deeper than the pregnancy aches. My body was heavy, my spirit fragile, and yet I was being held to impossible standards by the man who should have been my rock. Reluctantly, I stepped into the cool night air, waddling to the convenience store with a heavy heart and a belly that slowed my every move. On the way, I ran into Sarah. Her bright smile and gentle words lifted a little of the weight. But the relief was brief. Returning home, I faced Mark's sharp tongue once more. His criticisms over the meal and the delay echoed like a relentless storm, draining what little hope I had left for peace. That night, I ate alone, surrounded by silence and sorrow, wondering how love could feel so distant in the place I once called home. Just when I thought I was completely alone in this struggle, Sarah stepped in like a beacon of hope. Her kindness was more than just words. It was action when I needed it most. That night, when my water suddenly broke, panic surged through me. The trip to the hospital was frantic and filled with fear. Mark's usual indifference turned into confusion and frustration, leaving me feeling more vulnerable than ever. It was Sarah who didn't hesitate. She immediately called a special taxi, stayed by my side, and offered comfort through every contraction. Her steady presence was a balm for my nerves. She whispered calming words, held my hand tightly, and even made sure my parents were contacted to come quickly. In that sterile hospital room, filled with bright lights and unfamiliar sounds, Sarah became my anchor. a friend whose support reminded me that I was not truly alone. In those intense moments, I understood that true friendship transcends circumstance. It is not measured by how often someone appears, but by the strength they lend when you are weakest. The hours in the hospital stretched on like an endless tide, carrying waves of pain, hope, and profound loneliness. Each contraction was a fierce reminder of the life growing inside me and the journey I was undertaking alone. The sterile walls, the beeping machines, the footsteps of nurses in the corridor, everything felt both surreal and overwhelmingly real. Mark's absence loomed like a shadow. He hadn't come when I needed him most, when my body was surrendering to the intense, unrelenting waves of labor. I couldn't understand how the man I was supposed to trust, the father of my child, could be so distant when the moment demanded his presence above all else. The nurses were compassionate, offering words of encouragement and gentle touches, but it was Sarah who truly kept me anchored. She stayed by my side for hours, never once wavering in her support. When my strength waned, she whispered calming reassurances, held my hand tightly, and helped me focus on each breath. Even as the pain intensified, Sarah's presence reminded me of something essential, that love and care could come from unexpected places, and that I was not completely alone. Meanwhile, my parents had rushed to the hospital, their faces etched with concern and love. Their support was a lifeline, though it couldn't replace the emptiness left by Mark's absence. I watched their worried eyes, felt their warm hands holding mine, and drew strength from their unwavering presence. During quiet moments between contractions, my phone buzzed repeatedly with messages and calls from Mark. His words of panic and apologies filled the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Each message felt like an intrusion, a reminder of his failure to be there when it mattered most. Finally, after hours of pain and endurance, the cries of our newborn pierced the air, a sound more beautiful than any I'd ever heard. Relief and joy washed over me, mingled with a quiet sadness. Our baby had arrived, but the moment was tinged with the reality of what had been missing. Sarah smiled through tears, whispering congratulations and wiping away the sweat on my brow. The nurses congratulated me, offering gentle smiles and support, but my heart still ached for the partner who had not shared in this miracle. In the days that followed, the hospital room was filled with love and care from my parents and Sarah. Yet the silence from Mark was deafening. His absence felt like a wound that would take much longer to heal than the physical recovery I faced. That period taught me a painful but vital lesson. Strength isn't just about enduring hardships alone, but about recognizing who truly stands by your side. Sarah's friendship illuminated the path through the darkest hours, showing me that even when blood ties falter, chosen family can become your greatest refuge. As I held my newborn close, I made a silent vow to protect this child fiercely, to seek the support and happiness we all deserve, and to never accept less than the respect and care that every mother and child should have. After the baby was born, life in the hospital didn't get any easier. A new kind of struggle awaited me, just as challenging as the pregnancy and labor. My parents, who had arrived quickly, stayed by my side, helping me regain strength and providing the calm and peace I desperately needed. Their support was like a safe harbor in the sea of changes and stress. On the other hand, Mark's lack of support was glaring. His rare visits to my hospital room felt more like a formality than genuine care. His calls often sounded more like demands or complaints than words of concern. It was especially painful to hear his mother call with accusations, blaming me for not taking proper care of her son. These words weighed heavily on my already tired mind. The hospital staff, already aware of the difficult situation, became a true pillar of support. They not only did their professional duties, but also made efforts to shield me from unnecessary contact with Mark and his family, understanding that emotional peace was crucial to my recovery. When Mark and his family tried to interfere, their efforts were unsuccessful. My parents, Sarah, and the hospital staff formed a protective shield around me and my baby, guarding us from the negativity and chaos that could have shattered our fragile balance. During this time, I began to realize that true strength doesn't always come from family ties, which are often conditional and dependent on circumstances, but from those who stand by your side when you need them most. That support became the foundation of my new life, a life where I was ready to fight for myself and my child. Days turned into weeks, but Mark's behavior remained unchanged. His constant calls and messages swung between desperate apologies and sharp accusations, each one chipping away at what little peace I had left. The silence between us wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, suffocating, a constant reminder of the widening gap in our marriage. The tipping point came when a close friend shared a video on social media, footage she had captured of Mark's outburst and neglect. The video quickly went viral, sparking a wave of public outrage. Suddenly, Mark was no longer able to hide behind closed doors. The backlash reached his family and workplace, forcing long overdue accountability. Despite his attempts to deflect blame and minimize the situation, the truth was out in the open. I found strength in the support of friends, family, and a growing community who saw my story and stood with me. With the help of my lawyer, I prepared to take the necessary steps to protect myself and my child. It was a breaking point, not just in my marriage, but in my life, a painful but vital moment of clarity that set me on the path to freedom. Making the decision to end my marriage was one of the hardest things I've ever faced. It wasn't just about walking away from a relationship, but about reclaiming my dignity, safety, and the future of my child. The legal battles that followed were daunting. Endless meetings, court hearings, and difficult conversations that tested my resolve every step of the way. But with each obstacle, I grew stronger. Supported by my parents, close friends like Sarah, and a compassionate lawyer, I found the courage to stand firm. The process wasn't easy. It was filled with moments of doubt and pain, but also hope and determination. Divorce wasn't just an end. It was a beginning, a chance to build a life free from fear and disrespect. I learned that choosing myself was not selfish but necessary, for my well-being and for the little life depending on me. I embraced the uncertainty ahead with newfound strength, ready to face whatever challenges would come, knowing I was no longer alone. With the storm behind me, I began to rebuild my life piece by piece. Sarah's unwavering support became my anchor, her visits, words, and presence reminding me that true friendship is a lifeline. My parents enveloped me in love and care, their home becoming a sanctuary where I could heal and grow stronger each day. Holding my baby close, I felt a powerful mix of exhaustion and hope. The scars of the past remained, but so did the lessons. That resilience is born not from ease, but from facing life's hardest trials with courage. As I moved forward, I embraced a new vision for my future, one filled with peace, self-respect, and joy. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt ready. If my story resonates with you, know this: you are not alone. No matter how dark the night, there is always the promise of dawn. Together, we rise, stronger and braver than ever.